everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Sci-Fi Musicals podcast. It's our double feature episode. We are going to talk with our special guests who are bringing in a musical, a sci-fi musical. We're also going to discuss all of the fun sci-fi musicals that have been nominated for the Tony Awards that are coming up.
Sci-fi is taking over the world. It is a sci-fi invasion.
As you all know, we have a broad definition of sci-fi. So we're going to talk about the shows that we believe fit into that category and why we're excited about that.
Let's start with the big kahuna. We're going to start with the nominees for Best Musical. And they are The Lost Boys, Schmigadoon, Titanic, and Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York.
Right off the bat, The Lost Boys, we talked about that in our last double feature. I was super excited. 100%, no questions. That is sci-fi, and it's a pretty big contender. A lot of people are saying that it has a shot to win. The Tonys are known to go for the smaller musical, but I would say that if a big musical could win, I think that this one has a shot at that.
I'd say so too.
Because it's doing things that you don't normally see in these big spectacle musicals. For example, I don't remember if I mentioned last time, but it has a post-credit scene.
I've never seen anything like that in a musical.
Yeah.
Anybody listening out there, if you know any examples of other musicals that have that post-credit scene, post-bow thing going on,
never
let us
seen
know.
that.
I am super intrigued by that idea. So we're 1 for 1 so far with science fiction musicals in the best musical category. But can we keep this streak up? Schmigadoon.
I'd say it fits into the fantasy realm of our sci-fi world, right?
It's an isekai kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It is about a modern day couple. It's our plain, ordinary, in our reality kind of a couple. And they stumble across this magical musical theater realm where everybody's singing, and there are all these tropes from musical theater as they try to work out their interpersonal problems.
Yeah, and I guess we should go back and say, for those of you who don't understand what the heck is this weird word for maybe non-musical theater people, or maybe musical theater people that don't know the reference, Schmigadoon is a play on the title of a musical, Brigadoon, which is a golden age musical about a fantasy land. And then Schmigadoon itself is the stage musical version of the TV show, which has the plot that we're describing now, which was on Apple TV and unfortunately got canceled. But I heard that because of the success of the show, and if it does win the Tony, I think that it has a chance, and I've heard buzz that it might be renewed on television as well, because I was really sad that it didn't get renewed for that third season.
Incredible if it did that. The third season is already written.
It's ready to go.
Yeah, and I'm sure they could get all the performers to come back because most of them came back for the second season anyway.
Yeah, and all the performers in the show are Broadway people, like Kristen Chenoweth, Alan Cumming,
Parada, who is in the Apple show, is also
Aaron Tveit,
the Broadway musical of it too. So we even have crossover going on there. Worthwhile saying that season 1 of the Apple TV series is Schmigadoon, and it's based on that golden age Brigadoon-esque kind of a story.
Slash Oklahoma,
Seven Brides and Seven Brothers, Carousel, all
that
those
whole
sort of
era.
Music Man is a very prominent thing in this one. When we get into season 2, it's called Schmicago because it goes to that sort of darker, edgier
60s, 70s,
like Chicago the musical, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Hair.
Season 3 then, and I don't know too much about it, but because it hasn't been released or anything. It's supposed to be based on the sort of like big mega musicals of the 80s and early 90s. So I don't even know what the name of it would be, but it'd be like based on things like Les Mis or Miss Saigon or things like that. Yeah. So it is my only hope that the
Schmatz.
It is my most fervent hope that the Schmigadoonians stage some sort of epic revolution and maybe invade in our real world, because that seems very fitting for the genre and for this sort of a show. Anyway, though, so Schmigadoon, in case you can't tell, Andy and I really like Schmigadoon. We really like the idea behind it.
Even though I think it's a big cast show, I still would consider it a small musical in a sense. So I think it feels like it has a small musical feel, or it has an underdog feel to it. So
there's not
I
the
think
same
it fits in that
spectacle element as something like Lost Boys, or if you go back to other kind of big musicals like from back.
It feels like Shucked.
Okay, yeah.
Or Something Rotten. It has that like winking at the audience. We're in a musical and we know it, which normally I don't enjoy. But I think for Schmigadoon, they do something where they're not just winking, but they're winking with so much love for the art form that I don't mind that they're winking and saying, we know we're in a musical and why are we singing? Look, we're singing. A lot of times that bothers me. We're going to talk about that when we get to the TV musical episode of this podcast. But that genre kind of bugs me a lot. But I feel like this show, I haven't seen the stage show, I will admit, but the TV show version does not bother me when they do that.
Oftentimes I feel like when you have, and again, we will talk about this later, but these get stuck in a, like, how do we stop singing? The singing is the bad thing. Let's get out of it. And why is singing the bad thing? Singing is a great thing. I love singing. Everybody loves singing. Everybody loves musicals all the time. 100%.
They should. Some people don't, but they should.
No, everybody loves musicals. They're just wrong.
All right.
I think what Schmigadoon does is it says, it's not just like, hey, how can I stop singing? It's, we have to learn to embrace this musical theater world in order to get back to our own world.
Yes.
And I think that's something
that's the lesson. Love this show. So even though they're not sci-fi necessarily, let's talk about the other two nominees, which are Titanic and Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. So let's talk about Titanic, which I don't know.
I'm going to make the argument that Titanic is science fiction.
All right.
And it is science fiction going by the rule of humans reacting to new technology being a great big freaking boat.
Love it.
Because think of all the new technologies that the Titanic had to be in order to be the biggest boat at the time.
Yes.
And then what happens if it sinks? A lot of disaster film are in that science fiction place anyway. Like what happens when our technologies go wrong? When the systems that we have set up in place fail us. And I think that's a very science fictional thing altogether. Titanic, though, I'll say, yeah, I will count that as science fiction for the purposes of this podcast.
Sure.
Plus, you have a singing iceberg, and I can count
yes.
animals.
and singing natural objects. I think that if you do think about the story of the Titanic, like in context, it does feel like larger than life. It has captured the like imaginations, I'm putting in quotes, of people for many years. And it does feel like something fantastical in a way that
Doctor Who did Titanic in space. So
there you go.
If it's in Doctor Who, it's automatically science fiction, period.
Okay, so we will count Titanic in our sci-fi genre. Like, why not?
So, Andy, is this just a straight up adaptation of Titanic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Shot for shot.
Shot for shot. 100% Titanic. Great.
Oh yeah, complete with a Celine Dion narrator. Yes.
That's how it's different.
No, it's a parody. It's a parody. Again, I have not had the beautiful opportunity of seeing this amazing show. But yeah, the idea is that Celine Dion has hijacked the tour of the Titanic Museum, and then she claims to have survived the actual sinking of the ship, and then narrates her version of what really happened to all the characters in the movie Titanic. It's super camp. It's a lot of references to modern things like Drag Race and other pop culture things. It's one of those shows that's been on my list because it was off Broadway for a long time. And it's really exciting that that's such a show like this, like similar, I think, like to Oh Mary, where it's just so gay and like so insanely camp, like that it made it to Broadway, like being so like quirky and fringe and out of the box. Like it's just like heartening to see something as kooky and weird get to the Broadway stage is exciting. So I hope it runs a million years.
And the fact that this one took the route from like little quirky off-Broadway show, parody musical.
Yeah, it's a parody.
Bona fide on Broadway.
So we've got 2 parody musicals up for the Tony Awards, which is really crazy, to think about. Yeah. But at the same time, Avenue Q beat Wicked. So who knows? If Titanic can run away with the Tony, I won't be sad about that.
Unfortunately, though, I think this is where the sci-fi streak runs out, because
it does. And I think
New
that the most likely candidate for winning, because the Tony does love a small, tiny 2-person musical. I think that it rewards surprising, new, original, emerging voices.
Okay, sure.
So, although that's not 100% always the case, musicals are often come from adaptation. So adapting something doesn't get punished. But I think that if there can be something that comes from an original source and it works, I think that usually creators are given a little boost for that as well.
It's like doing a show without a safety net in some ways. Writing any original show is just harder than adapting.
So whereas the rest of these are based on source material of some kind, right?
Yeah.
2 being literal parody musicals.
2 Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York about? What is the premise of this show?
What is it about?
Across New York. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So there's an English guy who flies to New York for his father's wedding, and the sister of the bride is picking him up at the airport, and he goes with her to pick up the wedding cake. That's it.
That is the entire premise. And it's just 2 people in this musical, right?
Yes. The other thing about 2 Strangers is it's British. So you have that sort of British invasion tradition coming in with this one, because there's, which we'll see in the revivals as well, there is a tradition of British musicals having a home on the New York stage, and this represents that trend as well.
Okay. So in addition to the large sci-fi takeover of the best musical category, and when we get to best revival, we're really going to have a good time with that. But I'm going to say that of these 4 musicals, we're seeing 4 very different approaches to musical theater in 2026. There is the very large corporate-driven movie musical adaptation, and that is The Lost Boys. We see the popular, old school inspired golden age musical kind of thing that was also highly well known because it was on television first, that had made it to Broadway and is a musical comedy and is a little bit winking toward the audience. So the path that one took was from television land onto Broadway, and not necessarily the same path as a Lost Boys film. Right? It's also very new. Schmigadoon has come out within the past 10 years, whereas Lost Boys is a film from the 1980s. Then we have Titanic, which follows along with all of these parody musicals that are going off Broadway. Things that we've named a bunch of them here, but even things like the Bridgerton musical or Ratatouille the musical.
Heated Rivalry, the parody.
Heated Rivalry, the
our
parody.
friend Dylan.
Dylan. So we see this whole explosion of parody musicals that are happening there. Maybe because the rights of shows are just so difficult to get now for new writers, and so there's a good path in. So in terms of just business model of musical theater right now, I think that this presents a fascinating snapshot about just where we are in the industry. That these are the 4 musicals that are being lauded as the nominees for the best of the musicals this past year.
And we got Sci-Fi representing right up front. We love that. Love to see it.
My geeky little heart flutter. I love it.
So let's go to Best Revival, because this is where we are stacked.
We got 3 shows in the Best Revival of a Musical category. And I'm going to argue that we are 3 for 3 for Sci-Fi.
100%.
We've got Cats, the Jellicle Ball, which is the hyped up queer representation version of Cats that is set at a ballroom scene.
Yes.
It's so much fun. It is amazing and quirky. And Andy, what you were saying about hooray for queer representation on Broadway, this is dialed up to not even 11. Dialed up to 111.
1100.
Yes. as high as you can go with the queer representation, Cats is it. And it is a blast. It is a good time out there.
I've never seen a theater house full of people up on their feet screaming and yelling and just enjoying themselves as much as I have at Cats. Like, I was just in shock at how much fun every single person in the room was having.
Why is this one sci-fi? Because the original is talking animals.
And the Heaviside Layer.
Yeah, space and reincarnation.
It's just inherently like out there. It can't not be sci-fi to me. We're going to be talking about this in depth next season. We'll save this main discussion for then. Right. We'll leave it at this is sci-fi, and we'll get into it.
The second nominee is Ragtime, and this is set canonically in early 20th century. It is about a historical moment in American history.
Race and class, right? It's not about sci-fi.
And race and class is never in sci-fi.
Yeah.
So why is this science fiction? The fiction part is easy because technically none of this happened, even if there are certain historical figures that are present in work, like Henry Ford is in there, and Emma Goldman, and we get Evelyn Nesbit in a very famous turn. And if we're going by the idea that science fiction is humans reacting to new technologies, then this is 100% science fiction. Major parts of the plot revolve around the Model T Ford winding up with Coalhouse Walker and him buying the car for his future and his family's future. We also get ideas about mass media and new political systems coming in and the rise of factories and inequality. And those things are all very science fictional ideas. Plus, Warren the Duke. We have one character who is aware of the future and can tell the future and is trying to warn anybody who will listen about the oncoming World War I. So you get this subplot going on here where the main character of the show is psychic, and that is totally
There you go. Ragtime is obviously sci-fi. That's our tagline on this show. Ragtime is sci-fi.
Actually, sci-fi actually.
And then, of course, the final show in this revival category is
Richard O'Brien's
The Rocky Horror Show. Oh my God. This show made me gay. They always say, don't let your kids watch those movies. They'll turn them gay. Yes, that happened. I don't know how many times I did the time warp in high school, but at one point I jumped to the left and I never stepped to the right again. So, yes, I can also say that there are a lot of problematic things about the show, but ultimately it's a formative piece of culture for myself and many in my generation. And so it's exciting to see it back on stage and with an amazing cast. Again, my boy Andrew Durant is playing Brad. As I've mentioned before, we grew up in the same community theater back in Georgia. And there's just the cast. I'm not going to call out everyone in the cast. It's really stacked.
So why is this science fiction? Because you've got this strange group of aliens who are there to blow your mind and blow your gender. And there are space police and freeze rays. And there are individuals who've been created, like created people, like the golem kind of a thing. So we've got, this is sci-fi through and through, 100%.
Yeah, and there's some questions about casting, who should play Dr. Frankenfurter, and that's always been controversial. I think ultimately, if it's something that is a problem for you, like, that's respectable. And I say, don't see the show, don't support something that you don't agree with. I think that it's one of those shows that's like my problematic babe. I don't know. I'm on the fence about seeing it for some of those reasons, but I'm excited that it can be the kind of show that brings joy to a lot of people. Personally, I want to celebrate a show like Cats, which also has a lot of problems historically.
Let's just say all three of the revivals have their problems.
Yeah, Ragtime as well. Like, exactly. Thinking of Ragtime is really depressing and upsetting and like trauma porn. And Cats has a history of really racist sections of it. I believe most of them, if hopefully all of them, have been removed by now.
Yes.
It doesn't erase the pain that they have caused. I'm not saying that those things don't make the shows like have issues. That's the thing about revivals.
I believe that's also why we're big proponents in new musical theater, is because there are a lot of these like problematic faves that we love, that we like are inspired by, and yet we also recognize that these are like things that have real problems and that don't carry the messages that like we believe in.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a big reason why we are writers, is because we want to be using these things that we love, but putting them in better way that like more reflect our values as human beings and the world that we want to see.
So on this podcast, we want to stay positive, and so sometimes we don't want to focus on like the negative things about these shows, but we also don't want to gloss over them either. So I just wanted to mention, we know.
It would be disingenuous of us to do things that have real problems to them. Yeah,
and we want to respect, it's the right of everyone to say, I don't like that show for like totally fair reasons. But we're also excited that we have 3 sci-fi musicals in
let's celebrate that.
in the best revival category.
Now, I'm going to talk about Cats for one more second, and that is that you can see another trend going on in the theater world just by Cats' inclusion in this too, is that Andrew Lloyd Webber seems to be having a moment where his works are getting reimagined into these very different contexts from how they were originally put on. So we have very recently on Broadway, we have Sunset Boulevard, which was this stripped down, gritty, bloody version of it that had still interesting kinds of effects without the gigantic scenery budget going on for it. We've got Phantom, which like after its record breaking, like decades long run on Broadway closed down, then within a few years, it was back running again in New York in an off-Broadway house where it's this immersive production called the Phantom, the Masquerade. Where you wander around the opera house.
It's not even an off-Broadway house. It's literally a shop. It's literally an art store that they recreated into this immersive space where, there are 6 different phantoms that audiences follow around within 15-minute increments. And each audience gets a full show that they follow these different phantoms through the story, and it's totally immersive. Diane Paulus directed it, and so it's very much like Sleep No More, but like it's Phantom.
You also have something like Evita, which is coming to Broadway next season.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Another kind of stripped down Sunset Boulevard-esque reimagining of the work. So I think Andrew Lloyd Webber has this like newfound renaissance now, because Andrew Lloyd Webber is very distinctly musical theater. You sing Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff, and your aunt in Peoria will be like, "Oh, I know this show." So I see that trend happening now too with Cats, and I think that really continues on with this sort of a thing.
I think what's also really cool about Cats is they didn't really change the music.
Cats, the Jellicle Ball, redoing its orchestrations, in one sense, is very typical of just what happens anytime that any show has a revival, has a new production anywhere in the world. But then this particular one is interesting because that reorchestration goes along with the reimagining of it.
Yeah, but I'm saying they didn't change it that much.
Yeah.
And my point is that all the people that said, "Oh, I hate Cats," I'm like, you're watching the same show. Like, you just hated the costumes.
So what Cats did was that they left everything in place, basically, and had the orchestrator come in and change things. If they wanted to change the music, then it would be probably an arranger who would come in.
Plus, Andrew Lloyd Webber is credited for best orchestrations for the Tony Awards. He was heavily involved in any orchestrations that they did for this revival. And pretty much everything, to me, sounds the same as any version of Cats that I've heard, because I think his fingerprints were still all over it. And I will say that there are lots of different versions of Cats. We're going to talk about Starlight Express in a couple episodes. There are like a million different versions of Starlight Express, but they all sound like Starlight Express. They all sound like Andrew Lloyd Webber because he did all those versions. And so my point about Cats is that whatever you do to the orchestrations, the music is still Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yes.
It's still basically the show is the show. And all the people that are Cats haters need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, do I just hate leotards? What do I really hate about this show? Because now people are coming back and saying, oh, I love Cats, but I don't know. I hated it before and now I love it. Girl, it's the same show.
And I think that is very much the power of the sort of recontextualizing the older work.
Yeah.
That you can make people who think of the old work as being musty as coming to the table with this new stuff and being like, oh, no, this is actually very cool. I hate the old work, but the new stuff is great, even though it's the same.
Yeah. For those of us who have always loved it, yeah, it is awesome. So booyah. But also welcome. Yes, you can join us. I don't know what else I can say about the Tony Awards, except that I won't be sad for any of this. The only sadness is that Chess didn't get nominated, but I would still want Cats to win. So.
Yeah.
And if Ragtime or Rocky Horror wins, I'm okay with that. And all the best musicals, I would be happy for any of them to win. If you have the means to get out and see any of these shows, I would go ahead and buy those tickets before the Tony Awards on June 7th, because if anybody wins, it's going to be tough to get those tickets after that time.
I love the Tonys because not only are they just this perfect little snapshot of where you're at in a Broadway season, and it's a really great way for any of these shows to puncture into mainstream culture for a little bit.
Yeah, and then I also wanted to congratulate all the performers who have been nominated for sci-fi musicals. Luke Evans for Frankenfurter and Rocky Horror, Josh Henry for Cole House Walker Jr. in Ragtime, and Brandon Uranowitz for Tata in Ragtime are our sci-fi nominees for leading actor in a musical. Then we've got Sarah Chase as Melissa Gimble in Schmigadoon, Stephanie Sue as Janet Weiss in Rocky Horror, which Stephanie was in Be More Chill, Cassie Levy as a mother in Ragtime, and Marla Mendel as Celine Dion in Titanic. Those are all best performance by a leading actress in a musical. Those are our sci-fi nominees. And then best performance by a featured actor in a musical. We've got Ali Lewis Borzgwe. Oh my gosh, I'm butchering that. As David in The Lost Boys. Andre DeShields as Old Deuteronomy in Cats, The Jellicle Ball. Ben Levy-Ross as Mother's youngest brother in Ragtime. And as you mentioned, Leighton Williams as the iceberg / seaman in Titanic. Then best performance by a featured actress in a musical, we've got Shoshana Bean as Lucy Emerson in The Lost Boys. Love her. Rachel Dratch as the narrator in Rocky Horror. Anna Gasteyer as Mildred Layton in Schmigadoon. And then Nichelle Lewis as Sarah in Ragtime. She is incredible. I don't know who's going to win in that category, but I couldn't even guess.
A very competitive category.
I know. And then I just want to shout out directors. We got Michael Arden for Lost Boys, Lear de Bessonette for Ragtime, Christopher Gattelli for Schmigadoon, and Zaylon Livingston and Bill Rausch for Cats, the Jellicle Ball. And then, you know what? I'm going to shout out all the writers. And I'm going to shout out all the writers because we're writers. So best book nominees. We've got Cinco Paul for Schmigadoon, and love him again because of the TV show. Chris Hawk and David Hornsby, who I love because of Always Sunny and Mythic Quest and all his TV work. I'm a huge TV fan. But anyway, they wrote Lost Boys. Ty Blue, Marla Mendel, who plays Celine Dion, and Constantine Rizzulli for Titanic, and Jim Barn and Kit Buchan for Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. Then for best original score, music and or lyrics written for the theater. Now this also includes for plays. So maybe people don't know that you can be nominated for best original score for a play. Yeah. So there's only 3 musicals nominated for Best Original Score and 2 plays. So The Rescues, who did music and lyrics for Lost Boys, Cinco Paul, who also wrote the book as well as music and lyrics for Schmigadoon, and Jim Barn and Kit Buchan, who wrote music and lyrics for Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. Steve Barganetti wrote music for Joe Turner's Come and Gone, which is a play. And then Caroline Shaw wrote the music for the revival of Death of a Salesman.
I'm going to say that Caroline Shaw is one of my favorite contemporary classical composers.
Yeah.
Her stuff is so cool and powerful and always interesting to listen to.
I can't do all the categories, but congratulations to all the designers as well and everyone. Okay, I lied. I'm going to do best orchestrations because we talked about it. So we mentioned already for Cat's Jellicle Ball, we have Trevor Holder, Doug Schatt, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and David Wilson. Also, Lost Boys has a bunch of folks. Kyler England, Adrian Gonzalez, Ethan Pop, and Gabriel Mann for Lost Boys. Doug Besterman and Mike Morris for Schmigadoon. Lux Pyramid for Two Strangers, and Brian Yusufer for Chess. Yay for best orchestrations. Again, okay, I have to stop because we're just going to list every single Tony Awards. Welcome to our interview portion of the episode. We are here now with some of the creators of a new musical called The Brass Teapot. So we have with us Tim Macy, a book writer, and Chaz Cardigan, music and lyrics, and Eric Keiko, who is a co-conceiver and producer on the show.
Yeah.
So welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And if you can just go around like the first time you're talking to say who you are so that our audio listeners at home can get a sense of connecting the name to the voice.
Sure thing. This is Chaz Cardigan, the composer.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm Tim Macy. I'm one of the book writers. The other book writer is Rama Mosley, who's not with us today. She's busy directing. I'm Tim.
Hi, I'm Eric Keiko. I'm the co-conceiver / one of the producers. I think I watched the film in 2014. It was probably the following year, Tim, that I emailed. But probably 11 years ago that this process really started.
Yeah.
So speaking of the film, let's go all the way back and talk about how this project started, a little bit about the story, and what made it move from different forms that it's been in to the musical that it is today.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually still finishing my MFA when I wrote the short story. I just wrote it just to write it. It wasn't for any reason. I just had this idea. The premise of The Brass Teapot is a young couple struggling financially finds an antique teapot that gives them money when they hurt themselves and spirals from there, right? And when I was like 23, maybe, I was in a relationship and we were pretty broke and we were fighting all the time. And just this concept of, man, if we could get paid to fight, or if we could get paid for this difficulty sprung in my mind. And I wrote that story from a very real place.
Absolutely.
And I published it on a website, East of the Web, it was called. It was a big short story website and got a lot of attention, and a lot of high school kids started making their projects based on the story. They were making these short films that were all over YouTube, these couples hurting themselves and these magic teapots. I met Rama, who's a director. She read the story and reached out to me. And pretty soon I was writing the screenplay and she was set to direct. And we made the movie. The movie took a little less time than it's taken to get the musical on the seat, but it took a long time also. It's been a very long process. And Rama and I, we got the movie made. We shot it in upstate New York in 2012. It premiered at the Toronto Film Festival. I think it was 2013. It was a great experience. And since then, it's gained this international following. It's big in China. They made a shot-for-shot remake in China without permission, but whatever. And Eric discovered it from there, and I'll pass it over to Eric.
It was 2014. It was the week before I was about to get married here in Chicago. We were staying at my sister-in-law's place because we were living in New York at the time, but getting married in Chicago. And we were just looking for something to watch. The Brass Teapot was on Netflix. I'd never heard of it. It looked cool. And when I watched it, my big takeaways were these questions of how far would you go to take care of those that you love, right? To hold on to a life of comfort and to attain a status of what you think your life should be when you compare yourself to other couples and your peers. And this could be career-wise, it could be like life milestone-wise. And months went by and this story and these questions stayed in my head. And I just thought this would be the type of unexpected, weird musical that I would want to see. So why not try and make it, right? And so I Googled, I found this digital footprint like Tim was describing of the lore and this kind of community that had grown around the story and the subsequent film, and found an email address and just sent a cold email and said, hey, I've never produced anything in real life before. I'm not expecting to hear anything. And then not much time went by before I got an email response from Rama saying, hey, to your question of who owns the rights, we do, the creators of the film, Tim Macy and myself. Yes, we thought about dramatizing it. There have been other sort of similar inquiries. It hasn't happened yet. We'd love to learn more about you and see if you're the right person to take this on. And then years went by, Tim, right? Emailing back and forth, like life happens, job transitions happen. Ultimately, we all decided to work together. And that was 5 years after that. That was 2019. And so we were making plans. Tim and Rama were drafting an initial book, sort of placeholders for the music, because we were also looking for that last all-important missing piece. And for a while, we were pursuing more traditional musical theater writers and writing teams. And things weren't hitting and things weren't gelling in the way that we wanted them to for the tone of this particular piece. And so we started looking to the music industry. And my friend, who's a music supervisor in LA, Amanda Creed Thomas. And so I said, hey, this is your world that I don't know anything about. Are there people in your network who you think might take to this tone, this theatricality, and this dark comedy that also has these supernatural elements? And she was like, I got a short list for you. And thank goodness on that short list was Chaz Cardigan. Chaz, what did you think when I got that email from Amanda?
I had been a recording artist for most of my life at that point. And at that time, this is the year 2020, maybe 2019, end of 2019, somewhere in there. Yeah, end of 19, I think. I was signed to a major label at the time. And so the gears were all churning and the machine was really working in my favor, which is a very short-lived thing. And you have to make the most of it while it happens. At that time, my publisher sets up a meeting with this music supervisor under the pretense of, do you want to write a song for like the show Big Mouth? Or do you want to write a song for insert Hulu show here? To which the answer was always yes, because I would like to work and I like to work. I didn't really come from a theater background. I'd done theater once in high school. I loved it, but I didn't study the canon. I grew up in Kentucky. So the idea of being a theater person felt guarded in this ivory tower that belonged to the coasts to me as a kid that I just didn't get to penetrate too much. I think Glee was kind of my only in towards the Great American Songbook for the most part, which thank God for Glee. Thank you, Ryan Murphy. She said, oh, and by the way, I'm working on this dark fairy tale or alternative rock musical, but you don't want to do that. And I thought, no, I want that. No one's doing that. And at the time, I was hungry for knowing that my time with a label was probably pretty short-lived, because it tends to be. I did not know the pandemic was coming, but I was hungry already subconsciously, I think, for something I could work on that the label did not own. And also knowing I'm 23, 4 when this is happening, and I'm thinking, I need something that's going to open a door in my life in the next phase of my career. I don't know who I am on that other side of 25 yet, but I'd like to find out. So I watched the movie, and I just found the story so evergreen. It's just so pure, this idea of what we give up for happiness. And that's a thing I write about a lot in my music. So I said, yes, the team let me make a first demo to see if I could get the handle on it. And the shape of the score has changed a lot over the last 6 years. It's gone through a bunch of iterations of varying degrees of difficulty and density and rockiness versus musical theateriness and poppiness. And in the process, this show's allowed me a window to learn theater and study the canon and get to learn this thing that now is my life, and I love and respect it so much. And I am so grateful for getting to hop onto this years ago, because now it's the main thing I get to work on with these guys.
Yes, because as we were saying, musicals take a long time to gestate, sometimes longer than our children. And so this has been in the works for a long time. And we learned a little bit about the premise and the story. But I'd like to maybe switch to, you brought in some clips So maybe we can share some of those clips.
So we'll start with More. The lead of the show, I'd say the primary lead, is a character named Alice, who has grown up in tough background. She's been in this committed relationship for about 10 years since high school. They're not married yet. She's always changing the goalposts of when we're going to get married, when we're going to be able to settle, because it's very expensive to settle and get your life moving. And these characters are about 27, 28. She's gone through grad school. She wants to be a museum curator, and she just cannot get her life started. And at the time this song happens, she's just been denied a job she really thought she had an in for. And while she was at this museum getting denied for a job, she found her way into a sort of back archive and stole this ancient thing, this relic, this brass teapot that called to her. And she can't quite put words on it. She can't quite articulate why she did that. But what the audience will have seen is that the teapot has possessed the spirits of these different historical figures that came out on stage and guided her towards the teapot. The ghost of Marie Antoinette, Genghis Khan, Joseph Stalin, Al Capone, Joan of Arc. And they've guided her without her seeing them. And as More begins, her mom, who she's estranged from, has just called her and said, "Baby, I've relapsed. I'm back on drugs. I need you to pay for my rehab." And so Alice is having this kind of come to Jesus moment of saying, crap, okay, wow, I've got to pull it together then, I guess, and figure it out, because I didn't get that job. And now I need to pay my mom like $50,000 to do this thing that I know she needs. And it all falls on me as the only daughter. And yikes. So the song will start, and about midway through, what the audience will see is Alice accidentally burning herself with a curling iron. And then the ghost of Marie Antoinette will enter the song, and it will then become a duet for the second half. That's More.
That's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
I can really hear your pop rock background in that. One thing that I love about the history of musical theater is that it's always rooted in what is popular music at the time. So I think it's important to remember that a lot of times when we think of musical theater as a genre, we think that it should just be sounding a certain way. It should all sound like Sondheim, or it should all sound like Jason Robert Brown. Yeah, or like some sound that we think musical theater sounds like. But to me, it should sound like popular music. It should sound like something you want to hear on the radio.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was an interesting sort of push and pull when I came into the process.
Of course.
Please, yes.
When I came in, the initial sort of palette of influences that have been laid out were like, what if we chase like Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros and Florence Welch, and like Kate Bush was a big one. And it was like 80s alt, early college rock, right? This kind of, and with a little bit of a dark folksy thing. And we chased that, and then I chased like a combination of that and then like 2019, 2020 radio alt, which was what I knew as I was like coming into the process. What I found was that musical theater, it is influenced obviously by whatever's popular at the time, but it also does have a canonical reference quality. There's always this linear understanding of what's come before in the canon that I think the best shows are able to tap into. I don't think you necessarily have to be like beholden to it or chained to it, but I think you need to know what's come before on stage. Or if it's a rock musical, you need to be like aware of why a rock musical in the past worked. A pop musical, it's like writing it on its own in a vacuum is a fun exercise, but maybe not necessarily the best to give it a broad access point. Not even necessarily in these songs that you've got, but some of these songs stretch out for like 10, 11, 12 minutes, and they become these kind of sprawling pieces with like movements and sweeps in them.
Little sequence, right? Like sequence. Here's the
and they are punky, but there is like a musicality to them that I think that strikes a balance between both that I think the best shows do. I is what I feel like they do.
And it's been fun to be aware of musical theater history, right? So to know, and not to say you have to have a knowledge of it. But it's been fun for me to say, here's what a traditional Act 2 opener would look like, right? Or here's a traditional Act 1 closer would look like. And here's, I'm using this example because it's a question we're currently grappling with as far as where the act break wants to go. And it will tell the audience something very different depending on what our decision is, right? To leave them with one question and to invite them back in another musical moment or scene or whatever it may be. So it's fun to know the rules to then be able to break them.
Yep.
I'm not saying you should discard musical theater history, but I'm saying is that musical theater history tells us to make sure to keep in mind that what works is also what is popular music at the time.
Yes.
Also, like you said, keeping in mind the canon that comes before it.
It's this really interesting art form. Obviously, it's not location locked to New York, right, or the West End, but it has been and it will be the nucleus of like where musical theater, where the canon is dictated, right? And you have this interesting, funny tightrope you have to walk, knowing that most people who see a show, it's this combination of tourists to New York who don't really know what they're about to watch. And so they're open for the ride, but they are people who listen to people's music, who listen to popular music or rap or rock or whatever's on the radio, and they come in with their own thing. And then you've got the sort of New York theater scene or the London theater scene who do know Sondheim and who do know Jason Robert Brown and who are expecting that, and finding the line that appeals to both of those people is a really fun challenge. And then obviously if it succeeds, it finds its way to a little girl in the middle of Ukraine or something who doesn't care about Once on This Island. She just knows that song.
That sort of, in a weird way, reminds me of the monologue from Devil Wears Prada.
Sure.
Where she's, oh, you don't care where you got that thrift bin blue sweater from, but that color is actually curated for you.
Yes.
From the fashion industry.
You're doing great. Go ahead.
Thank you. No, I haven't rehearsed, but it just reminds me of that because, like you said, it's all influenced and basically curated by the sort of elite type thinking from New York and the sort of top down way of thinking of art. But then, yeah, it needs to also appeal to the broadest of audiences. So I think that's what, when you do find that magical thing, that's the key.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's hear the next clip.
Yeah.
John, Alice's longtime partner, they've made this deal when they recognize what the teapot's magic is, which is it pays you cash money for physical pain. When they first discover that, they make a deal that they will get out of the hole, pay off the credit cards, pay off the student loans, just get out of the hole, give it away. But get to that point, and Alice is saying to John, no, what are you talking about? Come on. We can go further. Why shouldn't we have more? Why shouldn't we be allowed to live a real life and have a little bit of excess? What's so bad about that? So that's setting up just enough.
John, we're all caught up, paid in full with our blood. What's the point of being free if we don't live the American dream? Just once, I want more than just enough. We don't owe anyone, so let the world owe us. For once,
I'm sick of the life that I've got. They tell me do better, and I've done a lot. But my life doesn't change, so why not?
That's great.
Very nice.
And I should say, doing vocals on that track with Chaz is Mel Bryant, who is a badass.
She is so cool. A New York / Nashville based rock artist who has been a friend for a long time. She actually co-wrote the next song with me as well, which this will be, the next song is the show's finale. We're skipping way past Act 2 into the, who needs it?
Time travel is also part of the show.
Oh, okay.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The sci-fi-ness of it in a minute.
Yeah. I know I've done a lot of talking, Tim. I apologize if I'm not stepping on any of this.
I like when you talk. It's good.
After the magic dies is I'd say I like the end credit song of the show. There's like a finale that kind of happens that sort of like ties up all the loose ends. And then this is more of like the seasons of love, of what's it all about? What are we saying? It's a curtain number. There's no plot going on here. It really is just like when a big, major, magical thing in your life happens that scars you, honestly, or like it changes everything, life has to keep going after that. you have to keep washing the dishes after that, and you have to keep driving in traffic after that. It's not like the big magical thing stops all that from happening. So that's the sort of setup for all of the characters going into after the magic dies.
Speaking of musical theater history, it's really given me Jonathan Larson vibes. Like Tick, Tick, Boom, I mean.
It's a huge compliment.
You said Seasons of Love, but to me, it's given like Tick, Tick, Boom.
I think 3090 is something.
Yeah.
Thought about 3090, the current opener too, Chaz, just with the piano intro.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just gives all the right feels you want in a big ensemble finale. So yeah, that's great. And you took this show to NAMT, right? Maybe, Jonathan, can you talk about what NAMT is?
It is a large festival of brand new musicals. There's a mentorship element that goes along with it and a presentation that happens. I believe it's a shortened presentation. It's not the entire musical presented or anything like that. The goal is to present this new musical theater to producers and artistic directors and people who might want to be putting on the shows in the future. This show, of course, is one of the NAMT musicals. So congratulations for that.
Yeah, and so when you took it to NAMT, there's a lot of producers and theater companies and theaters there from all over the country, maybe all over the world even, who are looking for shows to produce and musicals to develop. And did you get any folks that were interested in, working with you to take this to the next level?
One of the other things they do for each show is collate the interests that came from those who were in attendance. If you attend NAMT and go as an independent person, you can just buy a ticket. Or if you're a member, you can go in that way and you can fill out a form afterwards that says, here are the shows that I would like to learn more about, or here are the shows that I'm interested in following more. And so we got a whole range of feedback from, yes, keep me posted on what the updates are, all the way to, yes, let's be involved in the development. And 2 months ago in March, Algonquin Playhouse in Maine, their new works department took us under their wing and they produced another 29-hour reading for us, which was amazing. They introduced us to our director, Katie Davis. It introduced us to our music director, Rick Ettinger, who have stayed on with the project and also already have their fingerprints all over it in an amazing way. And so there was enough interest in the show after NAMT that we've been able to continue working on it and keep our eyes on what is the right next step. It's been a balancing act of how do we feel about the piece and where do we want it to go, and how can we carve out time in our own lives to make the changes that we know need to happen, while also wanting to work with the timelines of a theater company or a producer or whatever it may be. After the one crit reading, we had a great sit down with our artistic director and their new works associate just to collect even more really exciting feedback. And so right now, there have been some slight revisions after that, and we're shopping the show around. We're seeing where is the right home for it. We have a couple of paths. We're entertaining a few paths. We're talking now to general management companies and people who can help get us to the next level in terms of what does a New York off-Broadway budget look like? What's a Chicago budget look like? What does a tour budget look like? So we can figure out where's the right place to have its sort of premiere production.
So now we want to talk about the sci-fi-ness of your show, because we're
Sci-Fi Musicals podcast, after all.
So we like to do something called a tech check.
Oh, tech check!
What we like to do is rate the show on scientific plausibility from 1 to 10, and just talk about how the science works in the show.
Okay, so first you have to have a caveat of what do you believe in, in a belief system, right? Because there is this working mechanism of why this happens. It's not just wake up and here's a magic teapot. There's a reason that magic exists, because 2000 and some odd years ago, Judas sold out Jesus for a bag full of ducats, silver ducats. And then as he walked away with his ill-gotten treasure, the traitor started to feel the bag grow heavier and heavier till it felt like it was going to drag him down into the dirt. and he was going to be buried alive. So what could he do other than dump those beautiful silver coins into a nearby metalsmith's pot, which was being used at the time to create a teapot for the great Emperor Caligula. And those ducats, that silver, possessed in them more than just the physical makeup, right? They had emotion and pain, and they had the conveyance of betrayal into the physical, right? Into the object that you hold in your hand. You feel something. If you believe in the feeling being passed from a physical object, an object in this world, into a person, if you've ever felt that, if you've ever held something in your hands, a crystal, a jewel, something, and felt an energy from it, then if you can accept that into your belief system, then I give it a 5.
That's amazing.
Fantastic.
I love the lore.
Yeah.
Obsessed.
And sometimes in this podcast, we'll also talk about magical systems as well, in terms of how hard of a magical system it is or how soft it is. It sounds like you've set up a very hard magic system in this one.
There's also really firm logic to the ghosts that we figured out, I think, over the last year and a half. We love the spooky vibe, but then figuring out what is it? What does the teapot want? Why is it doing this? What is it seeking? And I think we do have a pretty clean line right now of ghosts want X because teapot wants X. And this is where those merge and diverge, converge and diverge at any given point in the show. And is it solved? Is it solvable? And obviously there's like a buy-in to the magic. I feel like it's on a scale of soft to hard. I feel like it's like 7, soft being 0, 10 being hard. But Tim said, if in the plausibility department, if you make space in your life for the supernatural and the mystical and the ecstatic, then probably a 5.
But what's also so interesting, Jonathan, hearing you talk about, you had this latter example of, is it a system in which you have to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what happens? A comp that comes to my mind a lot for this show when we've been developing it is Little Shop. And my life gets better. Right? Like, you just play it and all of a sudden Audrey likes me back and I'm doing good at work and like all this stuff. And so there's something really compelling to me as an audience member of watching ordinary people trying to figure out by trial and error or whatever it may be, trying to figure out a system that maybe does have very hard and fast rules, but they stumble and they're clumsy because we've all been in that situation, not all been in a magical, supernatural situation, but there's something really relatable, I think, about, if I do this, then that happens. And that experimentation, I think, and that's been really fun to also figure out the arc of, and especially with a show like this that deals with violence and partner on partner violence and seeing that escalate to, spoiler alert, emotional pain, right? That has to be handled really delicately by Tim and Chaz and Rama, the brilliant writers here. Anyways, hearing you spell it out in that way, Jonathan, about watching protagonists learn a system is exciting, and that's what we hope to infuse in Act 1 of this piece.
Yeah, and sometimes in other works that we discuss, science might be implausible, but also the entire world that they exist in is implausible too. It's like the spaceships and everything, that's pretty implausible. But the entire society is structured in this way that we don't really see a pathway toward creating in our real world. I think then that it seems to me then with this show where it can push it a little bit more toward the realism or
the world
like
is real.
Realistic science fiction, because it's existing in the real world too. A real world where you can turn on a television and technology like that exists and people behave in ways that we would expect normal human beings to behave given extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, the thing that is extraordinary is the teapot, it seems. And the possibility of things like that, like you mentioned, Tim, like if you believe in things like crystals and tarot and maybe UFOs that are being exposed by the government now, like things that seem implausible, but yet somehow we feel something might be true. But we
very
don't
realistic,
know.
except for this one little thing right here. Yeah. But the entire plot comes out of that one little thing.
We want to heighten certain elements that are satirical or a little bit out there so that we can open a door, right? Keep that door open for these otherworldly things to happen in a way.
There's a degree of absurdity that's been fun with it, of heightening the world just a little bit. But what the interesting, I think, line that we've been trying to ride with this last draft that we just workshopped is that anything that is absurd also is absurd because of how plausible it is and how it's maybe 1 degree removed from okay, this is a little ridiculous, but there's a scene Tim has written where in a call center, somebody gets a call that they're late on their credit card payment, and the punishment is that they're about to be sent to a firing squad or a labor camp. In context, it's funny, but it's a black comedy show. So it's only who steps away from a real thing that might happen, which is horrible, and partly why we need to poke the bear a little bit and try to make fun of it as much as we can.
Also frightening sometimes how the things in these works, if they're a little on the older side, and they're like, at the time that would have been pretty remarkable, and now it's like that's just how it works, maybe.
So we all feel like this show's living in a 5 zone because we have a real world context with one very magical thing, but that very magical thing is what hinges the whole plot. So it does have hard magical systems, so that gives it a little more bump up in the rating, I think.
Yeah,
it feels right.
Yeah.
Like a 5, yeah.
Is there anything that you want to tell us? Anything else that you want to tell us about your show, or anything that's coming up that you want to let us know, or maybe your social media or your website or how to follow you?
Where can we see more?
Yeah.
At the BrassTeapotMusical.com, you can now listen to all the demos with Chaz's blessing. We put the full album of demos up there, and you can also follow the Brass Teapot Musical on Instagram, because currently that's where you'll get updates. And so hopefully there will be news to announce this year.
When you have news, let us know so that we can announce it all over our episodes too.
Thank you.
I
Absolutely.
think before we leave, the last thing I'd like to say about the show is that so many of the productions we've gotten to do have been necessarily small scale or staged readings. And what I really want people to know about the show is how absolutely psychological and surreal it gets in the second act that is going to be so effing cool to see on stage when we find the right partner for this. I think that the buy-in of Teapot equals money is so fun, and the world is so fun. But in Act 2, as we get to the heart of it all and things get very dark and grisly, I think that's the part of the show that I'm the most excited for people to see produced. So that's what I'd like to float into the ether, is the buy-in is fun, but the real meat of it is what's going to be cool on stage.
I just finished a run of my show about tyromancy, which is the art of divination using cheese. So
Real
similar
thing.
idea, tarot, crystals. But like you said, seeing some of those production elements on stage is so satisfying, because before I could only see them in my head. Even my other writing partners couldn't see them because they were in my head. And it was just so exciting and satisfying to see it played out on stage. And I'm thrilled and excited for you when you get that chance as well.
Thank you
for the opportunity to come on here. And I saw Jonathan announce this podcast was happening. He was like, yes, these are my people. These are the kind of shows that we need more of.
Tell us again how you know each other.
Yeah.
Undergrad at Northwestern.
When at musical theater auditions, wearing a monochrome color button down because we were told that was the musical theater audition uniform.
Yep.
And singing Jason Robert Brown, probably, right?
Yeah, probably. But we crossed paths a lot. Were we ever actually in a show together? I swear that we were at some point, but I don't remember what.
Was it? It wasn't Children of Eden, was it?
No, I wasn't involved in Children of Eden.
Listeners, if you went to Northwestern between 2003 and 2007,
please tell us how we worked together when we were there.
Yeah.
You know what I'll do? I'll go to Scary Facebook and have it show me our friendship.
Yeah, you'll find some past picture.
Oh, Jesus Christ Superstar, directed by
yes, Jesus Christ Superstar. That was it. Yes.
There we go.
Who's who?
I was one of the random apostles, and then at the end, I was like this centurion who helped Dan Kohler get on the cross.
Yeah, you were. I was Peter. The Peter stuff.
Travis Greisler was the director on that. He's now some big shot Broadway guy now.
Yeah, I know him.
Joel Escher, who is in a lot of our mutual writing circles, is the music director of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Andrew Keltz was in it too. He's like all over the place too.
Broadway is Anna Islandsfeld.
That's right.
Very cool. Small world.
It was stacked.
Thank you all again so much for being with us today. And we will definitely make sure to share all your websites and social medias on our website. Thank you, Tim, Chaz, and Eric for being here today.
Thank you.
Jonathan, thanks, Andy.
So that is our Tony Award preview show. We'd like to thank our guests, Eric Kaiko, Chaz Cardigan, and Tim Macy for joining us today.
Thanks. Great conversation, guys.
Please follow us on all of our social medias. You can find us at Sci-Fi Musicals and become a patron on our Patreon for more exclusive content. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.